Hello, America. Welcome to the Junto Podcast, where we promote the practical applications of critical thinking and bold creativity. I am your host, Edgar Mills. Thanks for joining us. Hello, America. Welcome to episode 32 of the Junto Podcast. I appreciate you guys for listening and sticking with me. So, in the modern age we live in, an individual voice, my voice, for instance, can reach potentially millions of people. Is citizen journalism a viable expression of what we consider libertarian ideals? Is it the ultimate expression of libertarian ideals? The ability to speak freely to the masses. Does it empower people, or does it harm people? So it may empower the speaker, but how can we be sure what that speaker is saying to the world? How can we be sure that that's empowering other people or hurting other people or whatever? But it is definitely true that we have the capability and the capacity to speak up and to speak out against all manner of issues and injustices and just anything we want to talk about, and somebody will listen. Yep. I've discovered that. There's people listening to me right now. Somebody will listen. So this past weekend, I went to the Great Create DIY Festival, and it's a libertarian-centric get-together. And you have speakers. I was a speaker, and I talked about alternative networks and how to not function off grid, but kind of create an alternate network of people who can help you to do things outside of the sort of mainstream. And then plenty of people spoke, but one guy I was particularly interested in, I met a guy named Brad Binkley, and he is the host of the Propaganda Report podcast. And after I listened to him talk, I left the festival a little early. Excuse me. I left the festival a little bit early, and I caught him in the parking lot. And so we had a pretty good conversation and a meaningful conversation. And I was happy to meet the guy, and he seemed like a very genuinely good dude, and he had a genuine passion to sort of expose truth and parse out propaganda that flows freely across our television and interweb digits. And I've listened. I didn't know about that podcast, and now I do, and I've listened to a couple episodes. And I like the guy. He's from Georgia here. He lives, I think he might be from Georgia, but he certainly lives here. And I also think he does comedy as well. Brad Binkley. But anyway, he inspired me because his topic at the Great Create was citizen journalism. And so all the things he said I thought was very interesting. So I came home and kind of looked in a little deeper, and I sort of formulated my own thoughts on the whole thing. So, let's just define it real quick. Citizen journalism, I guess, it's just kind of like reporting, right? News reporting. Well, what do you call news? Anything, right? Topical reporting just by non-professional individuals who have the means to do it. All you need is a phone, to be honest, or a laptop, and that's really it. And on some of these platforms, you don't even need that. Well, I mean, you could write a paper and go upload it at the public library and put it on Substack. There's a lot of venues these days. There's a lot of ways to get your word and your message out there to the public. So citizen journalism. One journalist / author, she defines citizen journalism, and this is kind of a in-depth definition, as an alternative and activist form of news gathering and reporting that functions outside the mainstream media institutions, often as a response to shortcomings in the professional journalistic field, which uses similar journalistic practices as traditional or mainstream journalism, but is driven by different objectives and ideals and relies on alternative sources of legitimacy. Yeah, that was a very meaty definition. So I think one of the important parts of that definition is sources of legitimacy. Whether they're alternative sources or not, they still need to be able to sort of vet the information. Because anybody can put anything out there, and oh my God, we can go on the internet and you'll see that anybody does. And citizen journalism has, sharply risen, I guess, since, well, I'm thinking back, and obviously I wasn't born until 72, but I seem to remember there always being little independent newspapers and little independent zines and things. Now, some of those are for, it's artistic expression and comedy and things, but others were very pointed and sort of political critique and whatnot. But now, man, the computers, the internet, it's all there. But the citizen journalism has really, the more we see traditional media, mainstream traditional media, there's a mistrust there. People don't trust what they hear on Fox and CNN. And rightfully so, in my opinion, which is why this topic's so interesting to me. The traditional media is failing us, folks. They're feeding us agendas, not unbiased, objective information. So I would guess, and I would say that a lot of the citizen journalists, the people out there doing podcasts or out there on the street type reporting, they have a little bit of skepticism toward not only mainstream media, but maybe even a little bit toward the government or at least authority. But what it does, though, and what I think it does, is it opens up. It's like a free market, a free exchange of information and ideas that you don't have to go through any gatekeepers. It is a proper free exchange. It's a proper free market of ideas. We know ideas are strong, and we know good ideas can gain a lot of traction. We know these things. And what it also does, though, it decentralizes like the informational power. Do you understand what I mean? When the information is out there for all to consume, like the raw information is out there for all to consume, then the small sort of elites don't have a lock on it. They don't control what gets out or in what way it's delivered anymore. Now they only control that for, the mainstream platforms. But I would say citizen journalism outnumbers mainstream journalists. Who knows, man? God, I don't even know what the ratio would be right now, because anybody could potentially be a citizen journalist. So it takes away that power from the elites, and it reduces our reliance on literally government influenced or corporate controlled narratives. We don't rely on CNN and Fox. We can hear it on CNN and Fox and whatever, and then go find your favorite conspiracy theorists or any. I'm just using extremes there, and then you yourself can make a better informed decision on what you think about a thing. Yeah, it allows us to, when we get information. Now, that's not to say a regular guy. That's not to say I can't be a biased person. I can be, but you have to take what I say and process it just like you do mainstream media. It's just that the fact of the matter is I don't really have that. You can see just by the nature of who I am, and many of these other people are. Now, I don't consider myself a citizen journalist, folks. Strictly opinion here, strictly editorial. But what I'm saying is, my motives. I run a shooting business and a leadership development business, and I don't have deeper motives. I'm not being controlled by a corporate anyone. I'm not on the staff of some political action committee. Do you know? So you can sort of, generally speaking, probably put a little more faith in what you're getting from a regular guy. I would guess. That'd be my guess. every everybody has the capability to reach the entire world now in today's society. Now, establishment media, like corporate media, they got a network system, right? They got a main whoever, let's say Fox, and then there's all these affiliates, and it's like a system. And never mind whether it's over the airwaves or over the digits or whatever. And then they have basically reading off the same script. So a Fox News affiliate in Atlanta is probably saying very close to the same exact thing as a Fox News affiliate in Dallas or a Fox News affiliate in Portland. So there's that. There's that. But we have the capability now to go direct, point to point, from my computer to your ears, from my microphone to your ears, via social media, via audio director software, via Podbean, via Spotify, the whole works. Point to point, man, straight from my mouth to your ears without any network interference. And hopefully for as long as possible without any commercials. And we bypass straight past these traditional gatekeepers. And if you guys remember, I did a paper and I did a podcast on the reemergence of the American counterculture. And one of the parts of that I was talking about was musicians and the capacity now to make music in your basement, produce it, edit and produce and distribute it from your damn computer, from your basement, and potentially hit it big. That's what technology has done for us. So all of you out there, there's a love-hate relationship with this technology. It is very beneficial to some. If you use it correctly, and you can take advantage and do great things with it. And that's what the citizen journalism stuff is. And I say citizen journalism, and I liken that to a lot of the podcasts, because a lot of podcasts are like, they're delivering some news, but, largely you just have to understand that it's from an opinioned perspective. But hopefully a good podcaster who's trying to deliver news to you will caveat by saying, hey, it's either second or third hand effect or sources, or deliver their, at least that they have a direct source or something like that. So, we'll get to the pros and cons. Yeah. Reach and accessibility. We have it now. We have absolute reach and accessibility. Traditional media is on the decline and has been. And that's measured. So I got some statistics here, and that's measured by U.S. ad revenue spending. And it's in 18.3% in 2025. That's ad revenue spent on traditional media and television ratings and news, like CNN and all that. All of those viewerships are down, like big numbers, like 42%. I think CNN Q3 of 2025 is down 42% of total viewers. Yeah. Now, what number did that start with? I don't know. Just standard network television down. There are several newspapers. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution has just recently, I think 1 October, gone out of print. I used to read the Atlanta Journal-Constitution back in the day. They were, they had a liberal lean. They had a hard left lean, to be honest. They got out more and more as they went. I'm sure, did the Atlanta Journal-Constitution go out of business? No. I'm sure they have an online presence now. Well, they've had an online presence. They just don't do print newspaper anymore. It's just the times are a-changing. So, newspaper circulation from 2015 to 25, 65% drop in newspaper circulation. And that was now they do have hard numbers here, 37 million to 13 million. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised 13 million is still a number. Now, oddly enough, what traditional media has not dropped off. Yeah, talk radio. Now, it's interesting that statistic exists, and I'm going to tell you why. When I started doing this podcast stuff, that was one of the things I would talk to friends or talk to people about it. And I said, the podcasts of today remind me of talk radio of the 70s and 80s. In the 70s and 80s, talk radio was huge because you're driving in your car, you're going to work, right? That's when I listen to stuff, is when I'm in the car. And yeah, man, people would tune in on their AM radio, pick up whatever, Neil Bortz, and just listen to his show. And, I'll admit it. I used to listen to Howard Stern back in the late 90s, man, mid 90s. But that was basically talk radio. Now, it wasn't AM radio. It was on FM, big stations. But yeah, talk radio is still holding fast. And that's pretty interesting. Now, what's the commonality? I said podcasts remind me of old school talk radio. Yeah, you might be delivering some news, but it's a personality, whatever that personality is. And they're delivering commentary, opinion, or analysis. Yeah. And so you get a chance to hear a different perspective, and you can consume that and process it. And then we're like, okay, I disagree or I agree. And it kind of gets the wheels turning, right? Instead of just getting something from CNN, they're telling you how to feel. Oh, this egregious thing happened. They're selectively leaving out details and things like that. So yeah, talk radio. That's pretty interesting that talk radio is holding tight. In contrast to that, all the digital stuff is podcast listeners are estimated at monthly listenership. Now, this is overall. This is not one podcast, right? It's just generalized numbers. 100 million plus monthly listenerships on podcasts. Yeah, that's a lot of people. That is 1/3 of America. Yeah, that's a lot. 100 million plus. Ad revenue on social media is at somewhere around 2.3 billion. And something like 54% of Americans consume their news from the internet, from, social platforms. Yep. So, and here's an example. During the election campaign, Joe Rogan interviewed Trump. And I think that YouTube, it was on YouTube as well. It's on different platforms, but I think the YouTube video has 40 million plus views. That's pretty insane. Now, Joe Rogan's been in the entertainment business for a long time, and he's earned his way, and he's earned his due. But it's crazy that one person can reach 40 million people. That's insane. And like him or not, whatever. So that's some crazy stuff, man. It's crazy stuff. And I like it. I think it's awesome. I do think it's the ultimate libertarian expression of free speech and freedom of association. Because guess what? I put this podcast out. I expected at least 3 people to listen to it. At least 3 people to listen to it. We're up somewhere around, 6,000-7,000 listeners. And that's, hey man, it ain't 40 million, but it's pretty awesome. I'm pretty stoked about that. So the decentralization of free speech, man. Yeah, you can go out on the street and have all the free speech you want, but now you can get on and you can get on the internet and you can get on the socials and you can get on a podcast and you can reach millions. If you put it out there, someone will find it and appreciate it. Yeah, that's what I think. Now, I was talking about the gatekeepers earlier, with the traditional media. Now, look, the digital world is not all rainbows and unicorns, right? There are gatekeepers in the social media space. And who am I talking about? The Zuckerbergs, right? The Dorseys, the people who, started this stuff with all the best intentions, or even if they didn't have any intentions, just had no idea how it was going to grow, which I don't think many of them really did. And then they become these behemoths of information flow. So now we got gatekeepers. You remember also during the elections where some of these major platforms were complying with political sort of guidance to suppress certain information. Yep, that happened. So there's still gatekeepers, folks. Don't think there's not. However, it's just a little more free. We'll say it that way. But what's another risk? Okay, never mind that part. We'll get to that part again. We'll probably touch on that again here in the future. What's the big risk, though? You see it all the time, and I talk about it all the time. The big risk is that you get into an echo chamber. Now, you do that with traditional media, too. Yeah, you get that with traditional media, too. But these echo chambers, the problem is with the digital world and the modern world is that these echo chambers, some of them are pretty extreme. It might be a niche market. You might not have that many people listening, but the people that are listening are friggin' fanatical. And they're not hearing anything else except these extreme views. So it's good and it's bad. I think it's more good than bad. I think that we have a free market and a voluntary exchange of ideas over the traditional corporate or state media. But just mind you that there's still bad players everywhere. Bad players everywhere. All right, so one of the big gripes, I think, is from the establishment, the mainstream people. They all have a degree they all have a journalist degree or communications degree from NYU or, Berkeley, UC Berkeley. And the citizen journalist might not have anything. Hell, you might not even have graduated high school for that matter. So they're on about qualification. What qualifies me? What qualifies Edgar Mills to share his opinion with the world? Well, I mean, what does? my inherent right to speak my mind, right? You ain't got to listen to it, but I have a platform and inherent right to share my point of view. If people listen to it and believe it or follow it or agree with it, now that's pissing off the establishment media, right? But he's not qualified. I'm qualified. Well, what are these people who are claiming these qualifications? If they're just reading from a script, if they're just reading from a teleprompter, an approved narrative, what good is that? What good is that degree? Because that's what they are doing, folks. We know that, right? So what the citizen journalist provides is, well, one, potentially firsthand information, unfiltered information, and insights that probably challenge what the mainstream narrative is. Now, how genuine, again, you have to make that assessment on your own. But how genuine is Don Lemon? You know what I mean? He's nothing but a caricature. A guy opens his mouth. I may as well be watching a cartoon. And he apparently is an expert, right? He is apparently a qualified expert. So yeah, we got to get to it, right? How thorough is the news or the information we're getting from the journalist, the citizen journalist, and how truthful is it? How accurate is it? Well, the experts, the mainstream folks, they follow some standards of journalistic integrity, at least superficially. At least superficially they do. I really think it's only superficial. Because no matter what the standards of that they measure the quality and the truthfulness of the story, they still have to stay on the company line. They still have to support the company narrative. And if they deviate, I mean, we've seen in the past, if you deviate, you get the boot. In contrast, does the citizen journalist have a standard? Well, what we do is timely information. And it could be timely and accurate information. But if you happen to be a guy on the ground in some protest, some riot, at very minimum, you're getting legitimate, unfiltered, uncut video. Now, that can be manipulated as well. The good thing about technology is now that the technology exists to be able to tell when these videos have been manipulated. Same with mainstream media. They manipulate. There's been multiple lawsuits of mainstream news being sued for, what's it called? Slander or libel, I guess, for manipulating video to make it something look different. Famously, I want to say CNN had a video of Rogan where they manipulated lighting to make him look very, very unhealthy and very, rough looking, as opposed to the original lighting in a video where he just looked like it was normal Joe Rogan. So that's crazy, man. That's crazy that they do that. That shows you they didn't just start doing that, by the way. Like, the news shows you what they want to show you, what the company line is. And without anything else to compare it to, you're just like, look at that. That's what it is. Yeah, so the citizen journalist may not be accurate. That's the downside, is you may get some uneducated, biased, breakdown of what's going on in front of them. But also, it might be very raw, and you might just be getting the actual event as it unfolds, and then you can make the analysis on your own. But I'll give you an example. The hurricanes in the southeast here in North Carolina and stuff like that, Helene, citizen journalists, there was videos all over the place from people on the ground who were absolutely ripping FEMA. Now, the mainstream news, FEMA was doing we're out there working. That was a debacle, and FEMA dropped the ball on it. Well, if you look back, we'll see that what is FEMA's real job in life anyway? Is it to manage hurricanes? Nah, man, it's a cleverly worded acronym, Federal Emergency Management Agency. At any rate, yes, citizen journalists, man. They're out there showing that failure real time. And then charitable citizens were behind the rebuilding there and the help they got there. In fact, I'm proudly was a link in the chain to get, generator to some people who needed some help, man. So regular citizens are out there doing the thing. So professionals versus citizens. There's another podcast dude out there. He's pretty famous, I think, Dave Smith. His podcast is called Part of the Problem. He critiques the expert class like pretty hard. Because what makes an expert an expert? Is it because you went to college and you got a degree and you've been working at CNN for 3 or 4 years, so now you're an expert? Or is it potentially that if I'm speaking on military matters and I derive my expertise through the fact that I was in the Army for 25 years and I'm speaking on matters that I've seen firsthand, so who's the expert really? You know what I mean? Who's the expert really? Are you an expert because you took political science and now you're covering the war, in Ukraine? Yeah, I don't know, man. I like the way Dave Smith kind of rips on the expert class, though. And we can point to the COVID debacle, folks. We can point to that to show you where the experts were full of shit. Absolutely full of shit. And it's all coming out now. It's all slowly trickling out, folks. The real answers and the truth are slowly trickling out. Not sensationalized, certainly not to be seen on mainstream media. But the so-called experts led us down a ridiculously dangerous path at minimum. But yeah, they're elitists. These so-called this expert class of journalists, they're elitist. They're all connected, folks. They're all connected. The news and the entertainment industry and the political industry, they're all connected. And they manipulate information to their end. That's the way it is. A thing you're seeing what we've been seeing for the past couple of years, those deep fake videos. I tell you, citizen journalists debunk deep fakes faster than regular things you see on social media come and go before the mainstream media ever gets a grasp of it. You'll get information a week and a half later from mainstream media, because they got to figure out how they want to craft it up and edit it up and shape the narrative. So from a libertarian's perspective, yeah, man, we think that the professional world is, generally speaking, over-credentialed. If you got to go to school longer to be a hairstylist than you do to be a cop, there's a problem. That's a weird problem with credentialing. Yeah, that's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. Libertarians kind of believe and agree and even celebrate, the abolishment of licensing, professional licensing. Because even then, let's say I go to college or I go to some school to get some credential. Who's the jackass teaching the class? Is it some jackass that went to school to get a master's in whatever, couldn't get a job doing anything in the field, so became a professor to teach the same thing over again? I'll use anthropology as an example of that. Now, I think I know an anthropology graduate who I'm pretty sure is working at Walmart. I guess that's a place to study anthropology. I guess. Yeah, man. Too much credentialing out there as it is. I believe experience counts as much as anything. But all this credentialing does is creates this little elitist sort of monopoly on the information, right? Monopoly on the information. Now, as citizen journalists, we need to understand that, yeah, we should have our own standard of integrity and our own standards for fact checking and things like that. That stuff does need to be, we need to deliver accurate information. So speaking of corporate media and citizen journalists, well, let's say independent podcasts. Let's take corporate-owned media, sort of the broader term, and then independent podcasts. So let's look at a thing. What are the motives for independence? Guys like me, what are the motives? Normally, it's kind of driven by passion, right? And I just want to share things that I'm interested in and passionate about. I have no benefit in lying about a thing. I have no benefit in sensationalizing or downplaying anything. I'm talking about things that interest me, and I'm opening the door to be corrected on things, and I'm just sharing an opinion. So I think most independent people, that's what it is. It's just passion. And with that, I mean, there's always going to be some conflict. There's always going to be somebody who wants to shit on you. But, well, I'll give you some. Okay, part of the problem with Dave Smith. Now, he's got a big podcast. It's not Joe Rogan big, but I mean, I think he's got like 500,000 plus, right? But he's clearly passionate about delivering the analysis that he delivers. I don't know. I don't think he's doing it for a money grab. I think he's passionate about what he does. And then the guy I told you I met this past weekend, Brad Binkley, the propaganda report. Now, you talk to that guy for 30 seconds. You see that he has a passion about what he's doing. Yeah, absolutely. And then my friends, I got Elizabeth and Zach. They have a podcast called Banished Big Brother. Now, I can tell you those two people have no motive, no ulterior motives whatsoever, except to inform you, the general public, about surveillance overreach, state surveillance overreach. And they have a genuine hardcore to the bone passion about spreading that information. They have there is no gain in them lying about what they're doing. They're not making money off of it. And then my friend Jake has a podcast called Free Georgia Podcast. And all of these are all, the ones I've just all mentioned, they're all libertarian-esque podcasts. And what does that mean? They're just, they're about freedom, right? About freedom. That's all. But yeah, Free Georgia Podcast. And I think my bud Jake's getting ready to pass the baton over to a host, and her name is Kat. I don't know her last name, but I did a little 5 or 10 minute spot with them this weekend, and she seems very nice and she seems very genuine. And I'm sure that she has no ulterior motives other than just to deliver news about libertarian-esque issues, especially as they pertain to the state of Georgia. Yeah. So what about corporate motives then? We all know what the corporate motives are, right? Profit and influence. That is it. That every owner has a agenda, and probably the majority of that agenda is profit. Make money and expand. Make money and expand. So there are about 6 corporations out there controlling all of the information in America. Comcast, which is a cable company, among other things, owns NBC. Disney, the wonderful world of Disney, owns ABC. Warner Brothers owns CNN. Paramount owns CBS. Who else does Sony own? I can't remember who Sony owns. And then Amazon owns MGM. So that's all your entertainment and news, right? All packaged up. And you can tell, even watching these streaming platforms, you can kind of see where they're willing to go, what they're willing to let you see and what they're not. Yeah, you can see that. But those companies I just called out own about 90%. They control 90% of the media, the U.S. media. Is that elitists for 6 companies to own or to control 90% of the media in the U.S.? Absolutely, it's freaking elitists. Who owns all the podcasts? Yeah, no one. No one owns the podcasts. Who owns the Junto podcast? Well, I guess Edgar Mills. I don't think anybody else does. Now, the distribution platform that I go through, I've never been censored or I've never been given any guidelines or do's and don'ts or anything like that. I'm pretty sure I can say anything I want to say on here from the distribution perspective. And then it goes to Spotify and Apple and all these other platforms. You can hear some bizarre shit out there, So right now they're not being censored, and that's the way it ought to be, and I like it. And that's why corporate media is bad, though, right? Corporate media is bad because they are vulnerable. Any business, any big business, is subject to some buyout, to some takeover by someone who may or may not have your same desire or principles and desire to share them or whatever. Independence, not so much, right? Like, I'm sure if somebody went to Dave Smith and said, "Here, Dave, I want to give you $20 million to buy your podcast, but I want you to still host it. Do what you do, but..." I don't know. Would Dave Smith take that? I'm not sure, man. I don't know. If somebody offered me $20 million and said, "Hey, do what you do, but..." I can be honest with you, I would try to wiggle out of that. I would try to best assess how can I get this $20 million and still say exactly what I want to say. And I guess I would do that until somebody knocked on the door and said, "Hey, Edgar, look, you can't. You need to scratch that one. You're not. I can't have you talking about that." And at that point, I would be in breach of contract, and I'd have to give $20 million back. That's just me. I tell people this all the time. I'm not afraid of money, but I mean, I'm not motivated by money at all. I just want to pay the bills, man. As long as I can pay the bills, I'm good. Yeah. So corporate media is subject to that. I think independent less, right? They're less subject to that. And in corporate, look, we always go back to big corporation-y people doing corporation-y things, evil. But it's cronyism, right? When corporate media is up here and they're all spitting the same script, that should be a red flag. And that's how the cronyism works. Well, go get your, I watch, sometimes I watch Fox News in the morning. And when I say Fox News, I mean the local Fox 5 Atlanta. Because really, I'm just interested to see, one, what the weather's going to be. See who got shot in South Fulton. See which apartments went up in smoke in DeKalb County. And then, and then a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But then they always got a doc who comes on, and one of those docs is very much, party line guy. Yeah, take the COVID vaccine. Yeah. And he downplays the harm of all that. And it bothers me. But he's getting paid. So corporate media has a way about shaping a narrative. Yeah, shaping a narrative, which may in turn suppress, opposing views a little bit. That's the way libertarian ideal, might look at that. You might think, man, yeah. So authenticity. Yeah. I think authenticity, well, one, is critical, in my opinion. And that's what you see on the podcasts and independent music and independent a lot of things, is you see the authenticity. You know that you're listening to a regular guy or a regular girl, someone who probably understands your point of view, somebody who may or may not, probably agree with you though on certain things, and somebody you might run into out at the Jerusalem Grill or, at the pub. Regular guys. The authenticity's there. When somebody hits me up on a text or email or something, they don't get a standard form letter back. You know what I mean? And when you look at these corporate media types, they're all polished and they're all shaped up. And the hair's perfect. The suits are perfect. Now, like I said, I watch the local affiliate, Fox 5 News, and one of the guys on there, Buck, man, he does Buck's Burgers. He'll go get some burgers at a local place somewhere, and that humanizes him a little bit. But he's got some sweet suits, man. But I'll tell you why I started watching the Channel 5 is Ron Gant is on there. And if you guys don't know who Ron Gant is, he played baseball for Major League Baseball for the Atlanta Braves back during the World Series in the 90s when the Braves were smoking hot. Yeah, I've always liked Ron Gant. Anyway, and then Elise Edie, she's a doll. She's an absolute beauty. But Buck, yeah, authenticity, man. He's out there, eating Buck's burgers. I love that. It's still polished up, though. They're still the big camera. They probably still got a makeup guy, and they probably blah, 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 all that stuff. You don't really have that with the independents. Authenticity. You know what you see now, though? And Brad said this during the Great Create thing. Some of these people they're trying to do podcasts. Did you see Michelle Obama? She's got a podcast, I guess. Does anybody think that that's genuine? Like, she's just like, you know what? I got something to say. I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. Does anybody think Michelle Obama? Now, if you guys notice that my podcast is audio only, I don't have a video version of this. I'm in my basement, folks. I'm sitting in my basement right now, and this is my de facto office. And I got, some pictures on my wall of like a couple of the going away plaques I got, from 1st Battalion and from 2nd Battalion. And, I got a plaque from St. Petersburg Police SWAT team that when I trained with them, I got some stuff down here, some Army stuff. I got my family crest up on the wall over there. I've got a print poster, framed up poster of a Picasso up on the wall. I've got a canvas, framed canvas sort of thing, and it's got a phrase on it, and it says, "All you can take with you is all that which you've given away." Does anybody know where that quote came from? All you can take with you is that which you've given away. Yeah, that's up on my wall. I got a whiteboard next to my desk. And then I got a little bitty miniature thinker, the statue, Rodin's Thinker. I got that sitting on my desk because I like to think of myself as a thinker. But check this out. If you guys know me, if you know me well, you'll know that the reason I got that little statuette is because it's a prominent feature in the series, the TV series, The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis. Yeah. Oh, Dobie. He loved the ladies. Tuesday Weld was on Dobie Gillis first couple of seasons, and she was an absolute beauty. And Dobie was often sitting next to the statue, doing the same pose, thinking hard on how he can get Thalia Manager to go out with him. Anyway, I digress. Authenticity, man. Does anybody think Michelle Obama is doing an authentic, from the heart podcast? And Brad mentioned Joy Reid. Yeah. I think she got fired. What network did she work with? Was it MSNBC or CNN? One of the lefty ones. I think she got fired, maybe. So she decided to start doing a podcast. Do you think that she's genuinely just sitting in her basement, just giving it to you from the heart? I don't think so. There's probably a news crew behind the camera. Yeah, man. They don't have it, right? And it's hard to have that authenticity, I guess, once you reach a certain level of exposure. I guess. Shit, I don't know. But what's different about the news people, even in their podcasts, right? Independent people deliver plain spoken, raw analysis, raw opinion. And I think that goes a long way, and just for relatability and building trust. We speak to regular people, and regular people relate. Yeah, that's it. I want to say, and I'm not sure where this I had it, and I don't have it anymore, but podcast in the United States, 57% men and 52% of women is the listenership of podcasts monthly. So it's half and half, roughly, of the, 100,000 plus monthly listeners, a little more than half's men, a little more, half the men, half the women. They hear people that they can relate to, and so they listen. And you can find a podcast on any topic, folks. I know politics seems very prevalent, and I don't even want to say my podcast is political. It kind of is, I guess. I think I classified it something under like philosophy or something like that. I don't know. I tend to get off on political tangents. But citizen journalists, while being authentic and relatable, they can deliver information and not only deliver information that the mainstream's not delivering, but also expose the bias or the hypocrisy of the mainstream media. Yeah. And I think independent podcasters, independent citizen journalists actually do empower individuals and communities with information. And I think absolutely that the corporate mainstream media does not. It's elitist. It's elitist by nature. And by nature, elitists do not empower the individual or the small communities. That's what I think. They don't empower the individual or the community. They don't. People do not trust the mainstream media. That is a fact. I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 28% Americans trust the media. That's a pretty low approval rating, I think. Why would you mistrust the media? Well, let's use the COVID thing for a minute. That was a hard propaganda push, folks. That was a big campaign, all right, that they put out against the American public. But what it exposed a lot is the greasy connections, the incestuous connections between the news media and the government and the entertainment industry. And that right there is enough, folks. When that stuff is not forthright, and if you don't come on a newscast and you're giving some news that has to do with getting a vaccine, but you happen to be married to someone in the CDC, and you don't disclaim that, right? If you know, hey, look, full transparency, my husband works for the CDC, but I'm telling you that the CDC saying this. Nah, they don't do that. They don't do that. So it seems shady. Whether it's not or is, it seems that way. Now, you guys have heard me carry on before about CIA and Operation Mockingbird and all that stuff, right? So we know that the media and the government are in bed. We've known that. But like quite literally, there's a lot of intermarital stuff going on. Is that a word? There's a lot of government people married to a lot of news people, married to a lot of entertainment people, married to a lot of government people, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I said in one of my last episodes, like they're all sleeping together, right? They send their kids to the same private schools. They all go to the same country clubs, and they're all sleeping with each other. But I'll give you an example. I alluded to it earlier in the 24 campaign. The administration basically was coerced and manipulated. Well, not manipulated, but definitely coerced and forced Facebook and Google and Amazon basically to censor dissenting views. And that came out, that came out only after the fact. And then you got, in the current administration using the FCC to try to pressure certain people into, the delicense, certain organizations over coverage critical of the administration. That's not bueno. It's not bueno. It wasn't bueno when Biden did it, and it ain't bueno for Trump to do it. Man, there's a lot of examples here. I just don't want to go on sounding like a conspiracy theorist. I'm not. This is all the things that I have here are all legitimate things. Sitcom ran a campaign, a psyop campaign on social media using fake accounts to discredit Chinese vaccines. And that came out in a 2021 Pentagon review criticizing oversight. So the government pressures, and they don't have to pressure too hard, folks, mainstream media to stick on to official narratives. They don't have to pressure them too hard. They just got to do a little pillow talk at night and be like, well, my boss wants this and that and blah, blah, blah. There you go. Citizen journalists we ain't in that loop. I'm not in that loop for sure. Again, I'm not a journalist, but those out there, I mean, how can a citizen journalist be pressured? I guess people in Europe, you post the wrong thing on your Facebook and you're going to go to jail now. In the UK. Yeah. So I guess they can put pressure on you that way as an individual. Just trump up some, I don't even know what hate speech charges, and then boom, that's it. Something so friggin' subjective that nobody can make sense of it. So you could get pressured as an individual, I guess, to go to jail. But like, if the government says, well, hey, we're going to withhold money from you if you continue with your podcast, well, they would be in a breach of contract, but that's another story. There's just a whole level of mistrust out there that there's constant examples of. It's always popping up. So in our First Amendment, we have freedom of speech and association, and I want to say freedom of press. I'm pretty sure that's in there. I'm not going to look that up word for word. I can't read the First Amendment right now, but I think there's a freedom of press as well. But all these little incestuous little ties to the government, that violates that freedom of press. There is a conflict of interest there. And that makes the government able to coerce the media. Yeah, that's it. So otherwise, let's get away from the government stuff. What does the mainstream media, what are they chasing? What is their purpose? We talked about motives earlier, and it was money for the corporate media, right? Ratings, right? They want ratings. Ratings is what gets ad revenue. Ad revenue is what makes all the money. And we see that that's down. So what does that lend itself to? It lends itself to sensationalism. They try to do things for ratings. Talk about certain stories or highlight certain things for wow factor or whatever. Excuse me. To try to drive those ratings up. So, I don't even know how the Nielsen system works, but yeah, high ratings gets high ad revenue. The more people that a company believes is going to watch this show, whatever show it is, that's why like Super Bowl ads, right? A 30-second or a 1-minute spot for a Super Bowl ad, I don't know, a few $1 million. That's insane, right? So, of course, they're going to try to be as outrageous as possible. Now, pro football has got built-in viewership. How they manage to screw it up with bizarre, halftime shows, I don't know, but ratings, right? Now, in the same token, podcasts and digital media, it's all about the views and the clicks because the same kind of thing applies there. If you got, 100,000 plus, I don't know what, listeners, well, then companies will want to run ads and then however, you get per click. I don't know how all that shit works, but there's a risk of that in affecting the independent media as well. Now, the trick is, though, I don't think the kind of money is there for that, right? I don't believe that kind of money exists. When you say that I've monetized my channel, I don't know what the hell that means, but other than probably Joe Rogan and maybe Sean Ryan, I don't think too many people are making what you would consider a living off of podcasts. That could just be me and my ignorance. Now, that being said, I'm pretty sure you don't consider OnlyFans citizen journalism, but I hear they're making money pretty good over there. At any rate, the younger generation, I am Gen X, and then what? There's millennials, then there's Gen Z, and I don't even know what the new generation is called or going to be called. But it has trended away from television, good people. Now, I was born in 1972. Yeah. My parents had, back in the 70s, yeah, you had a dial. You had dials on your TV and rabbit ears. And yeah, the remote was me, right? You go change the TV. No, stop right there. And there was like 6 channels. 2, 5, 11, 17. 2, 5, 11, 17. 36, 46, and 69. And Channel 8. So that's a pretty good bit. That's a lot of channels. Channel 8 was PBS. Channel 17 was TBS, Turner Broadcasting. It used to just be called a superstation. I don't even know what it was called before that, and they played, generally speaking, a bunch of old movies. Like now, you got Turner Classic Movies. They played old movies and like Andy Griffith and stuff. And I think back then I don't know. Then you had the big network, 2, 5, 11 was ABC, CBS, and NBC. Then you had Channel 36, I can't remember it. And then Channel 46, I can't remember it. But I want to say like Channel 46 was like where they played like Kung Fu. I don't know if you guys remember that TV show. Had David Carradine. And it was supposed to be Bruce Lee, but it ended up being David Carradine. And then like Kung Fu Theater and stuff like that, man. Yeah, anyway, these days, there is so much out there to consume. It's insane. It's ridiculous. And you can you know, there are TV shows, because we got like a Samsung smart TV. So if you just go on the channel guide on Samsung TV, there's like this whole block of channels. It's just like video game stuff. People playing video games on TV. And then there's whole blocks of channels. It's just like music television. There's whole blocks of channels that are like outdoor, Red Bull, friggin' extreme sports stuff. There's just whatever. It's all out there these days. It's all out there. It's madness. So yeah, of course kids ain't watching TV, or even if they are watching TV, I don't know, they seem to prefer the small screen right in their hands as opposed to the big screen on the wall. I don't know. I can tell you this. I got a gigantic television in my living room. Like, it's ridiculous. It's absurd. And when my grandkids come over, we'll put whatever show on that is appropriate. But their attention span is so short that they won't even sit and watch the show on the big giant screen. They're running around and doing other things. It's crazy. And that's okay. I'd rather them do other things than be glued to a screen. But usually they want to get on another smaller screen. That's crazy. But it's trending down, folks. TV. Yeah, it's not going to go away most likely, but it's trending down for sure. So this chase for the ratings, this chase for the clicks, it distorts the markets a little bit probably. It can create monopolies, especially in the corporate world. But the sort of independent stuff, it's still, man, I still got to choose to click on a thing and watch it. Now the question is attention span. Does that thing that's being put out there, can it hold your attention? Because even adults these days, not even kids, the attention span, if you ain't hooked in the first, like 10 seconds, that's it. It's gone. So anyway, the chase for the ratings. Yeah. In the corporate world, I think they're having to try and figure out new things. I think that's why you see some of these TV personalities, kind of popping up on podcasts or doing interviews on, popular podcasts, because it's a market that, like, they're not trying to get ahead of it because it's been out there. They're just trying to catch up. Yeah. They're just trying to catch up. So ratings equals ads equals money. What's some other unseen sort of money influences? Well, for traditional news media, right, corporate media, it's these salaries, right? These people make a lot of money. Let's see here. Sean Hannity is on Fox, and Rachel Maddow is on MSNBC. They both make somewhere around $25 million a year. Can you believe that shit? Yeah. And then it says here, your average TV anchor on, like, local news stuff, they're making over $85,000 a year, average. So how much am I making from my media platform here? $0. Yep, that's right. $0. So these people are incentivized. If I'm Rachel Maddow and MSNBC wants me to bash on Trump and they're paying me $25 million a year, I'm going to bash on Trump. If I'm Sean Hannity and Fox wants me to bash on Biden for $25 million a year, I'm going to bash on Biden. I think it affects their ability to be independent. I do think that. And that money, I guess you can buy some power with money, I guess, a little bit. But, like, one of the ways that people make money, they all on the social media, is they got these Patreon channels and stuff like that. And, like, they'll have followers who pay, I don't know, $2-3 a month for a membership. Well, if you amass enough followers paying $2 or $3 a month, yeah, it's pretty decent money, I guess. Now, what do you give them for that money? I don't know. Again, I don't know how any of that stuff works. I'm not 100% sure I even really want to, but what else? So, yeah, you can do ads on social media, right? I could do ads on my podcast. I just don't. I don't want to explore that right now. But I don't know. You guys give me some feedback. If I did ads on my show, would you rather just hear me read the ad? Be like, hey guys, now I'm gonna do a friggin' ad here. Read the damn ad and then carry on. Or do you want it to break in with whatever their little commercial is? I don't know. I'm probably gonna end up doing ads sooner or later, I guess. I don't know. It depends on how the money situation plays out with some other stuff. But anyway, other than that, then it's like donations, right? People are membership based, or some people just donate to the cause to keep it running. Yeah, I don't know. So, the thing about donations is if they're, I don't want to say anonymous, but like no strings attached donations, right? Like if somebody out there just said, "Here, Edgar, here's 10 grand. I like what you're doing. Keep the faith, bro. Keep rolling." I would take that money and I would upgrade my little basement studio, and I'd keep doing what I'm doing. But you don't get that in the corporate world, right? If somebody gives you money to do a thing, they expect something in return. That's just cold hard business, and that's the way they do that. So, yeah, you can see the differences there with monetary influence. Ultimately, those big salaries from the corporate side, yeah, I think yeah, it supports statism, man. Supports the company line, and whereas the independent guys are out there and they're getting money from volunteers or from small memberships and stuff like that. So, yeah, man. Again, I think the citizen journalist comes out on top there for being able to maintain a neutral, well, not be pushed around by influence anyway. So right now, there exists somewhere around 500,000 podcasts. That's a lot of podcasts. I don't know if there's 500,000 television shows, but I made the comparison. And I do this a lot when I'm having a conversation about it. Now, I made the comparison, the modern podcast to talk radio of the 70s and 80s. But I'm also going to make it a comparison, given those numbers, right? 500,000 active podcasts as of today. If there's also musicians out there, right? There's how many musicians, how many records? Now I'm saying records like everybody goes to a record store. How many downloadable songs exist on the internet? Yeah, probably way more than 500,000. And that's the goodness of the internet, right? You don't have to be famous to put your stuff out there. Now, it may take a while for somebody to find it, but somebody's going to find it. And when they do and it speaks to them, they're going to download it, and you're going to make 6 cents or whatever off of it. And then somebody's going to hear your stuff. And then they're going to be like, "Hey man, have you heard this?" And then somebody else is going to download it, and then you're going to make 6 more cents. And then, maybe you'll be successful. Maybe, your little crew of 20 people who love your music, they're just loving your music. Just can't wait till the next one, you drop the next song. So, and it's like podcasts, it's the same. I kind of was worried about that. I was like, man, I put a podcast out. Who am I talking to? Talking to the air, like my own kids don't even listen to my podcast. My wife don't even listen to it. I got to force my wife just to listen to it. But somebody's listening to it because I got the metrics, on the pod being there. So, you put it out there, and if somebody hears it and it speaks to them, they'll listen. And then if they like it, they'll stick with it. And then they'll maybe share it with their friends. That's the way it works, I guess. And that's fine, man. I like that. That's genuine. That's grassroots stuff. That means it's not what's being forced down your throat. When you turn the TV on, that news is getting forced down your throat. You've got to go click onto the Junto podcast. It ain't going to just pop up, folks. Yeah. You've got to go click on. You got to go search for the Junto podcast, and then you got to open and scroll down, see which oh yeah, he's talking about pornography. Oh, I want to listen to that. Oh, he's talking about conspiracy theory. Yeah, let's see what Edgar's got to say about it. And versus corporate mainstream media, when 6 corporations own everything, and it pops up on radio and TV and everywhere, and even on your phone, you get ads from these big corporate behemoths. You know what I mean? So the difference between citizen journalism and mainstream media is you've got to go find the citizen journalist and actively seek out their information. Whereas the mainstream media, it's all there getting pushed down your throat all day, every day. So these independent voices, similar to mine, out here and on the digital airwaves, we're only really truly free. I mean, we can even say freedom is subjective, man, these days. But if we can openly question the official narrative, openly resist, if needed, the official narrative, well, then we're free, right? But blind acceptance and compliance to the official narrative, that just leads to serfdom, folks. Now, I want to give you a little side note here. When I was writing my notes, I did it on Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word. I typed in the word serfdom because I was writing this sentence: blind acceptance and compliance lead to serfdom. Microsoft Word corrected serfdom to freedom. Auto-corrected it. So I went back and rewrote serfdom again. And I checked my spelling. Yeah, that's how you spell serfdom. And it corrected it again. It had the little red squiggly line under. And its suggestion was freedom. And the sentence was, blind acceptance and compliance lead to blank. Microsoft says freedom. Let that sink in for a few minutes, folks. Microsoft exchanged the word serfdom for freedom. Be engaged, folks. Be engaged as citizens of America, as citizens of the world. Be engaged and give an ear to the citizen journalists, to the independent voices, to the small podcasts. Support free speech, because this is free speech, and that's it. This is free speech right here. And be skeptical, folks, of corporate media. Absolutely, 100%. Be skeptical of corporate media. Take it all in, folks. Take it all in. Process it. Analyze it. Think independently. Come up with your own conclusions. Yeah, that's it. Just use the citizen journalist as a guide. You can even use mainstream media as a guide, but only a guide. Understand that they have an agenda. All right, good people. That was the topic for today. Citizen journalism. Independent voices out here in the digital wild. Support. Yeah, support. Please give me your feedback, good people. I'm a flawed individual. I'm a flawed human. I don't have spell checkers and fact checkers and those people around me. And of course, I'm not doing this live anyway. I could probably go back. I think I do a pretty good job doing research when I do it. Tell me what you think. Give me your feedback. I'm out here right now actively searching for topics. I want to know what my listeners want to hear about, or at least to hear my thoughts on. Write a paper on something that you're passionate about. Send it to me, and we'll get it posted up on the juntopodcast.com. Come out and shoot guns. OspreyShootingSolutions.com. Come out and do some land navigation this Friday, folks. This Friday and Saturday is the 2-day land navigation course. You can find it on twoteamguys.com. Please give to the Help a Homie Fund. A buddy of mine, we talked just yesterday. My buddy Justin owns a company called Vitac Solutions, and they're a medical training and medical equipment provider. And they do aid bags from big to small, and they do a lot of good things. So I'm an affiliate with them. So and you can find this on my LinkedIn page, the Osprey Shooting Solutions LinkedIn, or no, I'm not LinkedIn. I'm sorry. Disregard that. Linktree. You can find this on my Linktree, Osprey Shooting Solutions Linktree. So I'm an affiliate with Vitac, and any purchases that are bought on that affiliate program, so with the OSS, from the OSS Vitac page, not only do those proceeds, the profit will go straight to the Help a Homie Fund, and then Vitac is going to match that. So that is very gracious of Justin, and I appreciate that he's doing that. And that, I think, is going to help us, get a little more money in the bank for what we want to use it for, which is to help people who need help, like immediately. So that is Give, Send, Go information.com/help a homie fund. If you want to give to that, you can go there and give to it. If you're in the need of some medical stuff, go to Vitac Solutions /Osprey Shooting Solutions, or go find that on my link tree. And yeah, go find yourself some equipment. Vitac is also, I think they are also now a distributor for North American Rescue, which is a very big, prominent medical equipment provider. So yeah, there's that. I want to just appreciate Justin here out loud publicly for suggesting that and for matching those funds. And then other than that, folks, keep your fingers crossed for the Silo Firearms Training Complex.com. Sorry, siloftc.com. That's the landing site. That's the web page for hopefully, our range that is going to be, hopefully, getting approved, zoning approved in January. So keep your fingers crossed. If you're a praying person, pray for us. And if you're a savage, heathen, woodland tree worshiper, please do a spell. Dance around a fire naked with some chickens and try to get that thing approved. Let's see. What else? That's it, folks. Be good to each other. Yeah, be good to each other. Have good manners when you're out there in the public, out there in the wild. Open the door for somebody. Yeah, pick up a piece of trash, like my friend Trail Trash Dirtbag. Do something good tomorrow when you get up and go out. Do something good. All right, folks. I appreciate you, and I love you. Take care.